So this lesson now is how to paint a rifle. And I got my training from 1st Marine Division Scout Sniper School when I went through them. I was on the SWAT team at the time with my police department, but I ended up working with them, training them, and they trained me, and I got to piggyback on a lot of great training with the U.S. Marines. Ooh-ah! So what I want to do now is teach you what they taught me, and that's how to paint a weapon. It's not just weapons though, it could be other pieces of equipment you find that you need in your FFP, your final firing position. So let me show you what I have on this table here. All right, you're going to need camouflage paint, and don't get anything glossy. It needs to be subdued, and there are companies out there that make subdued paints. I'm not going to recommend any particular one, but just order it, and as long as it's subdued, regular spray paint. And I have here my base. This is going to be the base. I like to do olive drab green. Then for your highlights, a darker, it could be you don't want ever pure black, but very dark green or brown. And then tans. And of course it all depends on your environment. You're going to need some tape, masking tape, because anywhere you don't want paint, you better cover it. For example, your optics or on your windage and your elevation, you want those numbers to show, and you don't want to paint over them, but you're going to need that. Then you're going to need some vegetation, and I collected this nearby. So let me explain that real quick, and then we'll get started. What you need to do is go out into a vegetation area, grab some leaves, branches for the pattern you want to paint. And obviously it's got to be an area where you think you're going to be fighting from, or your final firing position, your FFP. So I'm going to take some off of this bush here, some of the natural grass. I'm in Southern California right now, so this area is called chaparral. So I obviously want a chaparral type vegetation for my rifle. On the other hand, if I'm living in New England, I'm obviously going to grab some of those from the indigenous plants. And if it were a snow environment, if you're up in the mountains, obviously you're going to mix that with some white camouflage as well. All right, another thing you might want to do, I'm on this dirt path, is collect just a few rocks. Not many, but it gives you an idea. Like this is too big, I'm not going to use that. But some pebbles, good sized rocks, especially if you're in a desert area, because you don't have much vegetation. So your pattern would be more like the sand or rocky terrain. Again, always think about the environment you're going to be operating in. And of course, if you have to change your color scheme, paint thinner and start all over. All right, I have with me one of my students, Scott, and Scott's been training with me for about a year now in sniper tactics, also with a pistol and assault rifle, and it's his weapon that he brought today because he wants it camouflage. So what is it you have in mind, Scott?
Well, we've been training for some time, Jim. I've known you for a little bit longer, and I think it's extremely important to blend into your environment. And since I work on a national level, whether I'm in Texas, Montana, New England, or California, I want to be able to blend in case something kicks off, whether it be riots or some kind of situation where I need to blend in and camouflage myself. And not just my weapon, but also for packs, for my helmet, anything I may need to blend into an environment to keep myself safe.
All right, so let me show you what we're going to be painting in this lesson. So we have here a 308 sniper rifle with the scope, and of course that's the main thing we want to accomplish today. But I also have gloves. This is going to be on the primary shooting hand, and that's so even the heartbeat in your thumb, you don't want that moving the weapon at all, because it will move it slightly. Okay, not a big deal from 50 yards, but if you're shooting at 100, 200, 300 yards, meters, it can make a big difference. Now, even though I'm not left-handed, I could always paint it up and give it to a buddy who is lefty, because I'm not going to use this. Then, things like this. if I'm in a final firing position and I need to put some sunblock on, or maybe my hand's starting to get sunburned, well, when I pull this out, I don't want bright orange that's seen from 100 meters away. So I'm going to even camouflage anything I take out. And because every good sniper has a calculator, and of course one that closes, you need it because you don't want to wear out the batteries and stuff. I'm going to paint both sides of it, not the inside, but when this comes out, you don't want anything that's pure black in nature. And then just for fun, I have the base for my business cards, and I'm just going to paint that up and then put that on my desk. But like Scott said, we're not going to do it today, but he's also going to be painting his helmet and some other equipment that might be around when he's doing a final shot. So let's get started and go step by step how we're going to paint up this weapon. Alright, so as Scott is tearing pieces of tape, he's looking at different parts of his rifle scope, numbers, and then he's going to use the scissors for more precision, and he's going to cut the tape to cover whatever it is, lines, numbers, things that he needs obviously not painted, and obviously the optics. So he's lining it up right now, preparing for this paint job. Alright, so Scott has all of his pieces of tape here that he's going to tape over. He's going to tape over any numbers on the windage and elevation. He's going to tape over the optics. But if you have a lens cover, you don't want anything reflecting, so that is even going to be painted, so we don't have to worry about covering that. We're just going to paint it. This has to be painted, and he's got everything lined up. He needed the scissors for precision to get some of the smaller numbers, and now he's just going to put it together and we'll watch him do it.
I'll trim that up in a second.
Alright, what we're going to do now is we have to think about the magazine well. We want our magazine to slide in and out without any problems. The good thing is it faces down, so we don't have to do a lot of camouflage, just the edge. But he's going to tape, masking tape, then we're going to stuff it with a paper towel, make sure no paint gets in there. So he's going to start that process right now. Alright, now obviously we don't want any paint, not even a little drop inside of the barrel. And of course that could affect the trajectory of the bullet. So I found a pen that has some rubber at the end. You can find whatever, maybe a straw, maybe wrap some paper towel around a nail or something. It depends on your muzzle size. And I stick it in there and it fits nice and snug. And of course, this is good because we're going to paint around this, and when it's all done, we're going to take that out. Alright, Scott did a great job on the magazine well, and the dust cover obviously has to be closed. You don't want anything getting into the chamber. Now, we also have a free-floating barrel when it comes to a sniper rifle. Now, paint on it is not going to hurt it at all. I mean, you have to paint it. You don't want anything black. But the problem is with this outside casing, you have all these holes and stuff. Okay, we're going to paint over that, but keep in mind, if you want to change your color scheme, you don't want to keep adding layer upon layer. So you would have to come in with paint thinner, with some swabs and get it out of there. Now, if you wanted to, if you didn't want that hassle in the future, you know, you could stuff this because the outside is the most important, because this is going to be in shadows anyway. And if you wanted to take the time and stuff it, each one of these, yeah, it's going to take a little time, but it's up to you. But you decide how much cleaning you want to do in the future. All right, so Scott has now taped everything he needs with masking tape. Make sure all the holes are covered up. Now here we go with the actual painting. So as I said, in this case I want my base paint. I want to paint the entire rifle OD green. Then the highlights will be added after that. Now obviously you don't want to be too close. I'd rather you be too far than too close. You don't want runny streaks. You definitely don't want any paint getting in any of the mechanisms. So you want to test it first, see what's a good distance, and then from there, just do it light. You don't want to be in a hurry. You got to be taking nice strokes like this. And as you can see, I'm tempted to get in close, but I don't want to do that. I'd rather just do as much as I can and then come back to that later after it dries. Because again, you want a nice smooth finish. So it's quite a process, and I'm going to let my student do the rest. A little higher here, a little too close. All right, now the temptation for a lot of people is to just keep going, flip it over. But again, you want this thoroughly dried. You want this weapon dried so there's no scratches, marks, and take, a little bit of time and then flip it over. Well, what do I do until then? Well, that's why I have extra equipment to paint. So I'm going to throw in some of my own stuff while Scott's waiting for his to dry. And here's what I got. So pan on down. And I have my calculator, I have my gloves, I have my card, I have my my sunblock, and I'll even do Scott's thing there. So the main thing is just start doing the same thing that he did, and don't get too thick. And yes, you can paint on cloth. In sniper school we did it all the time. And here's my card, and you already see, look how much it covers my sunblock, and now I don't have to worry about reflection anymore. And I'm just gonna let that dry, keep doing what I need to do, and then I'll flip it over once we flip the weapon over. Throughout your life, how many times have you thought about your best friend? Or if you have children, how many times have you thought about them? Or let's take your person you're supposed to be the closest to, your spouse. How many thoughts have you had towards them throughout your life? And of course, eliminate any bad or angry thoughts. I'm talking about just the pure, unadulterated thoughts you've had towards them. Well, I'm on a beach here. And here's about a cubic inch of sand, 2.5 centimeters. And depending on the grain size and how compacted it is, there's about 10,000 grains here. So why is this important? Because in the scripture, God says, "How precious also are your thoughts to me, O God. How great is the sum of them. If I should count them, they would be more in number than the sand." How incredible is that? God has thought about you, He has thought about me more than all the grains of the sand, not only on this beach, but on this world. And of course, He's infinite, and His love and His wisdom is infinite, and His thoughts towards me are infinite. That's a God I can trust for my eternity. Okay, while you were working on other equipment or other things you had to do, let a couple hours go by, let it dry. Not more than an hour or two. But now we're going to flip it over, start the process all over. So Scott's going to keep going. And let's get started. All right, now that the weapon is dry, it's got its base coat, olive drab green. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna take a lighter color, and this is a tan, and we're gonna do what's called striping. So let's see how that works. All right, you don't wanna go crazy. Again, you wanna test it. It comes out a little watery at first. Let it, there you go. So you can see it's now finally gray, tan. So you don't want to go crazy, but you just want to do one swipe across, and that's it. You may have to come again. So I'm gonna, and you don't want it like it's a zebra. You want it at angles. So here goes, just like that. I don't even have to come back. Maybe slightly on that trigger, and that's it. You don't want to go too much, and then maybe one here, there, and then maybe a little bit on the scope. So don't go crazy, a little bit, few stripes, no more than that. I'm going to let Scott take over. So now that Scott's weapon is drying, I'm going to come back to my calculator and just do a little bit. Not too much. These are small items. And maybe a little bit on my card thing. And don't forget also your gloves. This is going to be my shooting glove. And I don't have to do too much, but just break it up a little bit. And because this is cloth, I may have to get a little bit closer than I would metal. But that's it. So don't go crazy. Maybe a little corner, and that's it. So this is the final step when it comes to painting. Not the final step for camouflage, but for painting the weapon. So I take some of the vegetation that I got, and I took a few rocks, and I'm going to show you how I set it on the weapon and get ready for the next coat. So these are the vegetation that Scott wanted. So I'm going to lay it on the weapon, and that's good. That's good. I don't need to go further. Maybe this leaf here, and just for demonstration purposes, I'm going to put these rocks right here, maybe 2 or 3 of them. Now, what I do is we take our darkest color, and again, it comes out a little watery, so you gotta paint a little bit until it's finally dark, and as you can see, it's now dark. All right, so now I know I've got it. So this is where you want a little bit of distance. You don't want to be too close, and you just want to do some spot hits. You don't want to do too much, just around the actual bush. And no more than that, just a few hits. This is a little more difficult than the first part of the painting we did. All right, so what I'm gonna do is, I don't need to wait for it to dry. I can lift it up, and I can take off some of these things, and voila, you see a little bit of of your pattern. Now I really want a good pattern on the scope, so I'm going to put that there, and I'm going to take my paint again, and again from up high, but you don't want too much or it's going to paint the whole area. So you have to, again, be careful, and you don't want to do too many passes. Now, that's about it. It's all about subtlety. So that breaks out the outline just from paint alone. So that's going to fool the eye, and it's not going to look like a scope from a distance. And so, again, we still see the green. We still see some of the light. And now we'll do the rest. Well, Scott's going to do the rest on his rifle. And then I'll eventually hit up my other pieces of equipment. And then lift them up. That's it. That's all you need. All right, so now that Scott's weapon is drying, he's already got the vegetation, then he'll flip it over. I'm gonna do the extra equipment that I brought, so watch how I do it. So just like a weapon, you set your vegetation, rocks, whatever, and then one or two, and of course these could move on you, so you may only have one crack at it. So just a quick shot. There, you saw how some of the leaves blew. That's all you may end up getting. So don't get too frustrated. And maybe a little heavier on that because that's not going to blow away. That could blow away. And again, I'm not too happy with that. So you could always just, you could do it midstream. And then just that. So don't do too much because too much can end up ruining your whole pattern. So now I take these off. And again, this is just sunblock. I mean, I don't need to get too fancy. And take off some of the rocks. I mean, that's it. It's only that turned out pretty nice, as you can see. Nice pattern and just enough. Now I'll come back later and maybe put some there. But the whole point is, you can do this to any of your equipment. And, okay, it's no longer pure black. That's exactly what I wanted. And finally, I have my sunblock. And of course, the problem is, I have my sunblock. I might have some other items like bug repellent or whatever in these tubes. So the thing you want to do is grab a marker and just write on it exactly what it is. Just on both sides so you know what it is when you pull it out. So sunblock. All right, now let's go to the next step with Scott. So Scott painted both sides, vegetation and all. Now we're gonna get it into the bipod position, see if we missed anything, see how it looks. All right, Scott, it's all yours. Set it up. And we got just a few pieces here. All right,
Touch of work.
there you go. And look at that. Beautiful job. And now what we have to do is we have to start taking out, well, I'll start here with the lens, and we start taking out the tape. And now, of course, this tape was the end. And as you can see now, we have the glass is perfectly clear. And now Scott's going to end up doing it for the rest of the rifle. All right, here's Scott's rifle with some natural chaparral vegetation in Southern California. and that's just a rifle. Obviously, we can do some more things to it with a sniper veil, sniper wearing a ghillie suit, but that's for another lesson. But this is the basic color scheme. Not only does it work out here, but next to a house, next to some bushes, even in a urban environment. It's a lot better than the shine of the black weapon that we started with. All right, you'll notice that behind me is where the wilderness is, and I collected it, but I'm in an urban area now. Now you have to think too, like I said, what is your final firing position, or where are you going to go mobile within a certain area? And if the riots hit again in my neighborhood, I may have to be in an urban area or slightly out protecting myself. So again, it's all about thinking tactically. So that concludes the camouflage painting that I learned from the Marines and now sharing with you. So weak made strong. God bless you.
This was an important lesson for me, one I've been wanting to do for a long time, and I think it's crucial that you're going to pick little things up along the way, how your weapon, how your bipod, how your stock operates. So just pay attention to that, and then you could apply this to any other aspect, whether it be a helmet, a bag, a med kit, whatever you need. So this was probably one of the most important lessons that Jim's ever taught me. God bless.